right, so I'll call to order the Ferguson Township Board of Supervisors meeting for Tuesday, February 3rd to order. Please rise as you're able and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. And at this time, I will recognize the Assistant Township Manager for Public Works, who will give our meeting procedures and call the roll.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the members of the board, staff, and public for joining us this evening for the February 3rd, 2026 Ferguson Township Board of Supervisors regular meeting. This meeting has been properly advertised in accordance with the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act as a hybrid meeting with the option to attend virtually and in person here in the main meeting room. If you are in attendance virtually using the WebEx platform and wish to speak on behalf of an agenda item, please say your name, municipality of residence, and the topic you wish to speak on when the chair calls on you. If you are attending in person with us in the main meeting room and wish to speak on behalf of an agenda item, please address the board at the podium and state your name, municipality of residence, and the topic you wish to speak on. Members of the public attending using the WebEx platform are asked to remain muted during the meeting to prevent any ambient noise from disrupting the meeting. If a member of the public is acknowledged by the chair, they may unmute their microphone for their question or comment. Secondly, board members are asked to indicate their name when motioning or seconding a motion so that the minutes may accurately reflect the action taken. Finally, a roll call of the Board of Supervisors will now be taken to ensure that all members can hear and interact using the WebEx meeting platform. Please indicate that you are here when your name is called. Mr. Thompson.
Here.
Mr. Patterson.
Here.
Ms. Stevens.
Here.
Mr. Heller.
Here.
Mr. White.
Here.
Chair, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you. So this evening prior to the meeting, the Board of Supervisors did hold an executive session regarding matters of litigation and personnel. Also, I'd like to share that Supervisors Patterson, White, and I went on a tour of the facilities at the Center Area Transportation Authority on January 29th. That was open to all new elected officials as well as those that had not yet got to tour those facilities. So I want to extend my thanks to CATA for hosting us. And next up will be announcements and proclamations. At this time, as looks like we're still awaiting some people that were going to be in attendance for the proclamation on Black History Month. So we'll start with a proclamation of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania, declaring February 17th, 2026 as Lunar New Year. And then we'll, once those other individuals arrive for the other proclamation, we'll recall that. This evening, the proclamation proclaiming February 17th as the Lunar New Year, whereas Lunar New Year is a holiday of a family traditions ushering in good fortune and strengthening ties that is celebrated by many members of the Asian Pacific Islander Desi American communities who shape the foundation of Ferguson Township's historical and current and future journeys. Whereas the holiday is predominantly celebrated by communities of Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, Tibetan, Mongolian, Singaporean, Malaysian, and Filipino descent, with a traditional focus on honoring ancestors and community bonds and celebrating hopes for the future. Whereas the Lunar New Year, also known as the Spring Festival, is based on the lunar calendar, which includes a repeating 12-year cycle of annual signs and their associated attributes. And whereas the Lunar New Year marks the transition from the year of the snake ending on February 16th, 2026, and the year of the horse starting on February 17th, 2026, the horse is the 7th of 12 Chinese zodiac animal signs and represents energy, speed, and freedom and resilience. Whereas over 10,000 Asian Pacific Islander Desi American residents live, work, and lead in Center County communities, contributing to our economy and way of life and enriching our social fabric with multiple languages, cultures, ideas, and religious beliefs. And now, therefore, the Ferguson Township Board of Supervisors does hereby proclaim February 17, 2026 is Lunar New Year in Ferguson Township and encourages everyone to join in the spirit of celebration and commitment to family, prosperity, and mutual respect in creating an inclusive environment of belonging for all our residents. Can we have a motion to move the proclamation forward?
This is Patty, so moved.
Zamari, second.
And we have a motion and a second. I was going to say any board members wanted to have a discussion, or I can open up the floor for any public remarks. I'm understanding we do have some representatives of the community here this evening. Okay. Feel free to come forward. When you do, just be sure to state your name and neighborhood of residence.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm a teacher. My name is Shobha Sivaprasad Wadia. I have been a resident of Ferguson Township for 18 years. And I'm very pleased to accept this proclamation with Judge Don Hahn as part of the local APITA community in State College. Even for those like me who don't celebrate Lunar New Year directly, we are connected to the idea of welcoming spring and the rituals that bring families together. We are all fortunate to live in a community composed of many languages, cultures, and people who celebrate one of the most important holidays in Asia. I appreciate the township's acknowledgement of Lunar New Year and how your commitment to ensure that each member in our community feels seen. As a mother, professor, and once public servant, I have seen firsthand how and what it means and the ripple effect of being seen and heard. As a scholar of immigration, I also view the historical struggles and legal restrictions that blocked Asian immigration until 1965 to this current moment where we are celebrating Lunar New Year in a local community as quite remarkable. So I'm going to yield a minute of my time to introduce you to my dear neighbor and friend, Ping, a 25-plus year resident of Ferguson Township, and she is going to share how she celebrates Lunar New Year.
Are you sure?
I am so sure.
Yeah, because they already said the Chinese New Year's, I think very clear. So yes, this year is a horse year. It's a great year. So we like, year. So I live in this Ferguson Township, over 25 years. I really love, our community. I always want to do some things. But today's my dear friends, they asked me, do you want to share how do you celebrate the Chinese New Year's here? I said, yes, I'd be really honored, to share with you. Yes, even I'm far away from China, but here the Chinese community in the USA, so everywhere we celebrate Chinese New Year. It's such a big deal. So I wear this, costume. It's the Chinese New Year's costume I wear. They're mostly like decoration and food. So that's a big deal. So Chinese New Year's. We prepared food in China when I was young for 2 weeks. After, Chinese New Year Eve, we celebrate, we stop, use knife, use anything. We just eat, enjoy, because we prepared food. The weather is cold. Yeah, so enjoy the time. I just want to share a little bit with you the decoration. That's this year I'm from China. I will hang in this year in my room at the house. Yeah, this really traditional Chinese decoration. Yeah, yeah. So they have more. This like lantern, you hang on somewhere the house. Another thing, the big thing is, yes, fish. Fish is a big symbol for Chinese New Year's. Like rich, you come here, so like this. Everywhere, if you go to, it is, look, there's another decorations. Yeah, so we do celebrate. Yeah, I will prepare lots of food. For my hometown, the north, we prepare unique, but the most things is dumpling. Chinese dumpling, yeah. The new Chinese New Year's, the mean is the family gathering. So make the dumpling, whole family get together, make dumpling. The mean is we are united, we get together, celebrate. Yeah. So if you, whenever, never, if you like to make Chinese culture, Asian food or some event, I volunteer to do it. Yeah, so I hope I have a chance to share with you my specialty Chinese dumpling. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all. Yeah.
I would like to say on the record that those dumplings are excellent. Thank you.
One of the challenges of celebrating Lunar New Year, ironically, has been the Gregorian calendar, which of course has January 1st being the New Year. And in fact, quite frankly, it's a more accurate calendar. And as East Asia basically moved towards modernization, it tended to abandon the lunar calendar as well as the Lunar New Year. For example, I think that in the 1870s, when Japan threw out the shoguns and the emperor sought to modernize the country, they adopted the Gregorian calendar and started celebrating January the 1st rather than the Lunar New Year. Basically, when the French established their protectorate over Vietnam, once again, the Gregorian calendar prevailed. When Japan started its conquest of Korea, once again, the Gregorian calendar supplanted the Lunar New Year. And when in China, around the 19-teens, when the emperor was overthrown and a republic was established, once again, they went with the Gregorian calendar. It's sort of an interesting fact that in many ways, it was the rural areas that tended to continue to celebrate the Lunar New Year, basically as a means of trying to preserve their tradition through the modernization. And in fact, I think that quite frankly, where there were countries that were subject to colonial rule, like Vietnam being ruled by the French and the Koreans being ruled by the Japanese, much of the celebration of the Lunar New Year was also a little bit of an act of defiance. And it is one of the interesting things, of course, is that even after the Japanese surrendered and Korea regained its independence, they continued to, the urge to modernization led them to continue to celebrate January the 1st rather than the Lunar New Year. It's rather ironic that as they became more modern, around 1989, they actually re-embraced the celebration of the Lunar New Year. And it's sort of a rather interesting combination of accepting modernization, but on the other hand, trying to honor traditional values, traditional celebrations. And in fact, quite frankly, the diaspora of East Asia tend to actually appreciate that in as much as that, although we, of course, are Americans, we still celebrate the Lunar New Year as a tie to the culture actually of my parents, not. And I think that there is a certain lesson to be learned about that regarding trying to the reconciliation of progress with tradition. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, whether in the room or online, had some words you wanted to share?
I do also, I'm sorry, my name is Don Hahn. I'm actually from the borough, and I do greatly appreciate Ferguson Township's considering this proclamation.
Thank you. Recognize online, Ms. Krishnakati.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I just want to thank everybody who made the comments and the Board of Supervisors for this proclamation. As you know, the Panapida Circle has always been really thankful for all your support, and I just wanted to add something that complements both what all three residents of our community shared, which it seems really, when the first Lunar New Year was celebrated in the 1850s in San Francisco, that was in the midst, as Professor Shobha said, of anti-Chinese sentiment, and the San Francisco Lunar Parade that was started then lives here today, right? So, and with what Judge Hahn said, this is very much an American tradition. And so at this time, when so many of us are feeling marginalized and vulnerable, I just want to thank all of you for this proclamation, which shows that this is a Center County tradition. This is our celebration, and just want to thank you all. Oh, I forgot to say I'm Nalini Krishnankuti. I am a resident of State College, and thank you.
Thank you, Nalini. Anyone else? Any board remarks?
I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your traditions with us. That's amazing. I love it. And thank you all for coming out and helping us celebrate. So I really appreciate it.
I was going to say, having a motion been moved and seconded, the motion's now before the board. If there's no further remarks, all those in favor of adopting the proclamation say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. The proclamation is hereby adopted. I was going to say what was that?
We're getting pictures with it?
Yeah, I was going to say at this time I'd open up the floor, any photos from the group as well as any elected officials, and then we'll continue on.
To the recess.
Yeah. Shouldn't take too long, so a couple minutes,
So we're gonna recess, see that?
Yes, well, they might take some B-roll footage, but while we're doing this.
Not recessing.
And we are back, and we'll move over to public comments for any items that are not on the agenda. So we'll start in the room. Each person that wants to speak on the items that are not in the agenda gets 5 minutes to speak. We ask you to provide your name and neighborhood residence when you're speaking up front here. So starting in the room, any public comments? Seeing none, anyone online?
So we just modified the agenda.
Yes.
Okay. So I have some potential other modifications to the agenda, and I think the board should vote on it.
Yeah, absolutely, before we go much further. So public comments now closed, so yeah.
All right, very good. All right.
Sorry,
so,
I couldn't get off mute. I'm
go
here for
ahead.
public comment. I'm not even actually sure if this is on the agenda, but I was told that there's going to be a presentation on the reporting standards and what's being done as far as that goes. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone understands that the way that these sexual crimes are reported is very serious, and it does make a huge difference in a lot of ways if someone's charged with rape versus a sexual assault. The sentencing is different.
Yes, that item is on the agenda coming up here.
Okay.
Yep.
awesome. So just a couple of things I wanted to, I think number one was to move maybe this other proclamation to later, if everyone's okay with that. I don't know what later means, maybe at the end.
Thinking probably after reports and presentations.
Okay, very good.
Reassess again.
Yeah, yes.
And then I think two other items that have come to bear is number one, in our last COG meeting, I think there's probably some appropriate reflection that we need to maybe take and have a little bit of discussion on. No action, but maybe consensus about how we feel about that last COG meeting.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I just want to, again, I'm back to, we're going to discuss this tonight about how we add items to the agenda.
Right.
We're now modifying the agenda. It's not what our procedures are currently. It's going to be on, tonight, this chance for people to vote to change it completely how they want to change it.
Right.
But we right now have a procedure that we follow to add items to the agenda. Certainly rearranging something because someone's not here, or moving something up because we want to keep somebody here longer than necessary, that's certainly understandable. But I just want to follow the procedures we have, and tonight's the night for the board to say, we want to get rid of all this, we don't want this. But let's follow what we have until we take that action, and then after that action's taken, then whatever. I just think we need to follow our procedures until such time as we have different procedures.
So if I may finish, the second thing that I wanted to bring up was that we have our COG reports. I was recently appointed to a National League of Cities committee, and I just wanted to bring some of that information back from that meeting, and can certainly wait 2 weeks, but I wanted to maybe spend 1 minute on that to bring that to the group. And this is nothing staff needs to prepare. It's just I wanted to add that those two items to the end of the COG COG section.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'd be interested in the League of Cities report. Would communications to the board be a good time for you to share on that?
So the board can vote to do whatever the board wants to do as long as it does not violate the charter or the state law or federal law. And so what we're talking about here is a de minimis item. And again, I totally get it. The procedures, those are kind of large items, and it's been used for large items that staff needs to prepare. These couple items are not that. These are, again, just wanting to bring these couple of things to bear, and I think putting 5-7 minutes at the end of the agenda isn't going to kill us.
Would it, to me, it seems like maybe under reports and presentations, is that the best place for it?
I think it's under the COG stuff. So there's 4 things under COG. It's just a 5 and a 6 at the very end of the meeting. What does the National League of Cities have to do with the COG?
We are, well, I mean, underneath it per se, or maybe it could be a number 7. We are a member of COG. We're a member of PML. We're a member of PSAT. We're a member of National League of Cities. I don't know that we're on any other committees. I'm just saying I was appointed to one. I wanted to bring a little bit of information back to the group. So if everybody's okay, I move to make those small adjustments, de minimis items to the agenda.
So a motion was made. Is there a second?
This is Matt, I'll second.
Okay. The motion having been moved and seconded to add those 2 items in. The motion's now before the board. Is there a discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no.
No.
Passes 4-1. So
Thank you.
slip that in there. That will bring us into the approval of the minutes from January 20th, pending no corrections. Can I get a motion to approve that?
Ms. Omari, so moved.
And do we have a second?
This is Patty, I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. Next up, reports and presentations, our diversity, equity, and inclusionary activities and acknowledgements. This month is Black History Month. The United Nations World Interfaith Harmony Week is February 1st through the 7th. World Cancer Day is February 4th. International Day of Women and Girls in Science is February 11th. Mahashivaratri, a Hindu holiday, is February 15th. Got Mardi Gras on February 17th and Ash Wednesday on February 18th. Next will be our 2025 financial year in review, presented by the Director of Finance, Todd Grady.
Thank you. What I have to do, James?
You might have to drag your, do you have it in presentation mode? You might have to drag it over.
Drag it everywhere, I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you want, I think you disconnect it. The second screen where you have to put it in presenter mode.
Nobody's staring, Todd. No pressure. Sorry, I had to break the ice.
Yes.
There we go.
All right, fantastic. Sorry about that. So I just wanted to present, we all talk about the budget and what's going to happen. This is what happened, right? So I want to also show that. So this is, I'm calling the 2025 financial year review. Of course, this is unaudited. The auditors are coming in, but it's and so I wanted to, just an overview, general fund, we came in at 106% over budget in revenues, which is good. And our expenses were 83% of the budgeted amount, just general fund only. So this whole presentation is primarily general fund, because the other funds are all restricted or they have different parameters and just not as much of a concerned. I have also the cash flow of all the government funds. We were up about 1.88 million from 24 to 25 on December 31st. So that could change depending on when we get earned income tax, but it was a positive amount. So in our real estate taxes, we had budgeted $1.9 million. We got about $1.919. We were a little bit under budget, but I budget for face amount, and so a lot of people pay discount, and there's also $25,000 in the budget for delinquent taxes that we get from the county that people are paying, and that came in about $15,000. So that's part of the underage of the variance. Earned income taxes, we budgeted $8.4 million. We received 8.7, so 373,000 over budget. The real estate transfer tax came in at $118,000 over budget, so that's pretty close to what I expected. And those are hardest to predict because we don't know. All we need is one big property or to make a huge difference. Local services tax was $8,000 over our budgeted amount, so that follows pretty close to the earned income tax, slightly over. In other funds, so this is showing, we kind of rolled everything else in, and we're showing $417,000 over budget. A lot of that is interest earnings. I had those under predicted by over $100,000, and also grant reimbursement. We got reimbursed $200,000 for the Park Hills Drainage Way project. It was a grant we had as part of that. So that money came in and went in as miscellaneous revenue. So that shot that variance up over. So there's $300,000 right there. So that's all the revenues. Excuse me, why is this thing doing this? So the expenses, I ran through the expenses, and the three expenses on top are the biggest ones, basically. Wages, with our vacancies we had in 2025, we came in at $1.2 million under budget. Of course, the benefits follow suit because healthcare and FICA and everything else is $598,000 under budget. Interfund transfers, $540,000 under budget. And then I have other $721,000. So that's anything from engineering to. And the interfund transfers was also due to transfers to the parks because the Cecil River project did not start. It's a 2026 project, so that kind of got kicked down the road. And this is the cash flow. So I want to reiterate that this is at the balance as of December 31st of each year. But our general fund, there was $3.6 million higher, and that was due a lot to the transfer from the TIF fund. Last year, we passed a resolution to have the max at $2 million, and so we moved $3.2 million in there January of 2025. So that bumped the cash flow, but it also, you can see the second item, transportation, was $1.5 million under. So we transfer money to transportation each month, but then we transferred the $3.2 million at the beginning of the year. So that shows that under each. Liquid fuels is $414,000, the cash reduced by. And that's due to, we moved a lot of expenses in there because the fund balance is getting high. And other funds, $153,000 higher. So that's showing $1.8 million. And you can also see our cash balance went from 15.5 to 17.3. So I just wanted to, that's what actually happened. And so if there's questions that are any discussion, I can entertain this now. If you don't, that's.
Any questions for Finance Director? Mr. Patterson is recognized.
I'll do maybe 2 rounds, but I'll start with thank you. Love this. This is kind of what we needed to kind of, where are we right now? Very helpful. I think the biggest question I have that you probably can't answer right now, but it is a good question for folks to think about, is what if we continue to run at 83.13%? What are the impacts?
What-
Meaning, so the first slide where he said we, the expenses, we didn't spend 100% of our expenses?
That means we're 17% under expenditures,
Correct.
which means we save money.
That's right. And so what happens at that same level of service, same whatever, what are the impacts if we keep at 83%? That's the question. I'm very curious. Like, are we missing out on certain things? Have we not done certain things? I know, and again, this is a very, very long-winded answer, but like, what have we missed out on? And I know back in December when that first snow hit and that first 2 inches made it down and we were 1 hour late, a lot of folks were pissed, right? Excuse me, were upset. But then we had this snowstorm and there's still 2 inches outside on my road, and no one's online complaining. So I mean, I think it's relative. It's the first snow versus 12 inches, but
I think
if everybody okay.
And I think it's a very good question. I think what this provides is last year's snapshot of how we ended the year. I think what we want to come back next, sometime in the first quarter or early second quarter, is as we continue to talk about the deficit that we have between expenditures and revenue, is talk about, okay, we only spent 83% this year. Now, it's not going to be 83. Even if we stay the same in 26 from 25, it's not going to be 83% because of increases in salaries and so on. But what we want to do is say, okay, here's what we've done without, and we can continue to do without, because it hasn't had a negative impact on our operations. We still delivered service. We still delivered safety. We're able to do all the things we have. However, these are positions that we haven't filled that we really need to fill. We can't do without. Here's the impact of not having them. And so I think the next part of this is, okay, yeah, we have a fund balance of roughly $11 million. So for 2026, we're going to be okay. We're going to be fine from the standpoint of making ends meet. But we can't keep doing that every year, having a budget that's $3.7 million unbalanced. And so we want to say, here's where we think we could cut. If there's any other options or opportunities for revenue, whatever that kind of revenue might be, grants or what have you, here's how we think we can get ourselves closer to a balanced budget. And think of it possibly not just over 1 year, but how we do this over the next 3 to 4 years to get ourselves to a structurally balanced budget. So I think that's the next step of our process, is coming with information about how we get closer to where we need to be.
Fantastic. And then my other note is, it looks like earned income tax kind of saved the day a little bit. And is that wage increases in the township, or is there more people? Do you have any idea where that $300K kind of came from?
No, I mean, it's so hard to predict.
Okay.
Because I basically look at historical things, but I can't automatically add a 3% that everybody who lives in Ferguson Township is going to get a 3% raise. And I want to be conservative in the figure, right? I don't want to overpredict.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for not overpredicting.
And I don't want to say it's $9 million and it comes in at 8.4, because then that causes a big challenge, right? So it's kind of like we look at the history and see where we're at, and it's always kind of like a shot with the best information you have at the time, right? And so I run also, we're doing this in September, so I prorate where we were at so far, extrapolate out 12 months, and that's kind of where we go. That's what I use.
That's all for me.
Okay, Mr. Heller is recognized.
Todd, I just want to say thank you. I know there's a lot that's going on with this and trying to keep the numbers fresh, especially as we get to the end of the year and the money's still coming in and all that. Sincerely thank you. I know it's a lot of work that goes into this. And what this does for me is, folks may see in a future agenda item really talking more about how we budget. And this drives home the potential for maybe a priority-based budget model where we talk about our priorities, we focus on those, and everything else is really a tougher conversation between directors and the manager to stay under, et cetera. So more to follow on this, and I think this is a great precursor to that discussion about budgeting approaches and what we might want to consider moving forward, because budgeting can be done many different ways depending on what organization you're in. And I think I have a model I might want to talk a little bit more about at a future item. So thank you. Sincerely.
I feel like we might square up on more of a program-based budgeting guy myself, so I think that's where I'll be looking.
Program, the two program and priorities go very closely.
Anyone else? I thank you, Todd. A lot of good information there, and look forward to future discussion. Sounds like there's some good ideas on the horizon. So
Yes. Oh, may I pause for a moment and just say, if any supervisor would like to help me craft any of that, I am more than open to help. So thank you. Yes.
all right.
Depends if you're buying drinks or something.
Always.
All right, so that was financial year in review. The next item we have is an informational update on the Uniform Crime Reporting UCR presentation. And I will recognize the Chief of Police, Matthew Wilson, for that one.
James is working on it.
Screen sharing,
Yeah.
suspense loading in the background.
Again, nobody's looking. Nobody's watching.
We like to, as some of us in HR call it, the most stressful part of the day, sharing the screen.
Yeah. That's true.
Do you see my screen? It's in this mode. Oh, do you see it now? Well, it's still in.
And then they see your Amazon shopping cart. You go, about that.
And this presentation is also available in the agenda packet from our website if you click on agendas. So, and those of you joining in the room, you're also free to use your mobile devices to follow along if it's easier to read. Just ask to keep the volume down.
Ready? Good evening, Board. I understand a recent news article has caused some concern regarding proper uniform crime reporting. I understand that. And I welcome this opportunity to provide information regarding Ferguson Township Police Department practices. Next slide. So, this is a very short report, but I recognize it's also a very heavy topic. Before I begin, I do want to make audience members aware that I will be making references to sexual violence, and this may be distressing to some audience members, in particular survivors. At the bottom of this slide, there are some sources, national and local support resources for people who have experienced sexual violence. So I apologize, but this is what I need to talk about. Next slide. So simply put, the Ferguson Township Police Department is correctly reporting rapes to the Uniform Crime Reporting System based on the federal definition. The staff and detectives understand the importance of proper coding and reporting of rapes and all criminal offenses for that matter. The department follows the sexual assault response team model of investigation. This is the accepted professional standard. All sexual offenses are assigned to a detective and are a high priority for follow-up and collaboration with victim services. Evidence obtained during these investigations is provided to the district attorney's office for determination of proper criminal prosecution options. So you collaborate with the district attorney's office as we do with all serious crimes. Rape, sexual assault, and other sexual offenses have always been and will always be a high priority and investigated thoroughly. How cases are investigated and charged criminally is not based on how a criminal offense is coded to UCR. Again, charges are determined based on the evidence and consultation with our local district attorney's office. This is the history. Since the mid to late 1990s, Center Region Police Departments, and that includes the Ferguson Township Police Department, have prioritized and supported sexual offense survivors in various ways, including the following: creating and utilizing the sexual assault response team model. I already mentioned that. This is the professional standard, consists of a collaborative approach between specially trained nurses, center safe advocates, and the responding police investigator. It utilizes minimal facts interviewing and empowerment of survivors in the investigation process. Minimal facts interviewing really has to do with not having a survivor have to continually tell their story over and over again. So that's the standard. We follow a countywide sexual assault policy that's been in effect since the 1990s. And again, we collaborate with Center Safe and PSU Student Affairs, among other support agencies. Again, we're holding those offenders accountable when we can, but we're also making sure that victim survivors get the resources they need for them. So in conclusion, monthly police department UCR submissions are available online and they're for the public. You folks also see them in the board reports. It's actually, I would say, from what I've seen, it's easier to probably see it in the board report than it is going to UCR because it's not the greatest website. But Ferguson Township, it's not me, but they've always provided you what those UCR submissions are in those. So I would ask anyone in the public or yourselves, if you have a question regarding what you're seeing, ask me. Furthermore, it is anticipated, just to kind of let you know, it's anticipated in late 2026 that there will be a switch to reporting all criminal offenses through the National Incident-Based Reporting System. It impacts this, but it doesn't really have to do with this. This is a initiative that has been, initiative we've been working on for the last couple of years with a new records management system that Ferguson Township is involved in with the other consortium departments. That will involve a switch to NIVERS. It will change the board report a little bit. But this is a more robust and current form of crime reporting and is recommended over antiquated UCR reporting by the federal government. And NIVERS is already being used across the country in many police departments. Pennsylvania is just a little late to the game, which is often the case. So that's what we'll be moving toward. I hope it's moving toward. I hope it is at the end of 2026. It might not be until 2027. So lastly, if you have any questions, if anybody has any questions regarding that, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Ms. Stevens.
You had said that Pennsylvania was a little late to the game in this reporting. So are local police departments sort of preempted from the state police, so we couldn't be doing the most thorough reporting, etc.? Is it we have to follow what the state police does? Is that how it is?
No, it's just that, we have, from what I understand of this, and I'm not an expert in this, but we've always reported what's called summary UCR, Uniform Crime Reporting, and that is still set with the state, and you can still do that. But the federal government is encouraging more police departments to move to NIVERS. And that has been a conversation. It was, I believe, don't hold me to this, that they wanted that to start in 2021, but it still hasn't happened. There's still those of us that are still reporting UCR. Some of the issue is the records management systems, like the current records management system that the consortium of police departments, that's Penn State, State College, Ferguson, and Patton, we're all sharing the same system. It is currently set up and programmed to report UCR. So we are making this switch to a new records management system, and it will be set up to report NIVERS.
That's great. It was okay. Thank you.
Okay. Are you sure? Because I have a ton. Okay. Maybe I will ask a few. All right. So I appreciate you kind of hitting it right on. There was this article, and when I first read it, my initial reaction was, how can I help here in Ferguson Township? So I'll ask that question first. Is there anything that this board needs to do to help?
Not that I'm aware of. I would say ask the questions if you have them. If you see the board report or go to the UCR website and you have a question about something report it. If you want to ask me the next time around, you're going to see the rape, you're going to see sex offenses and a Part 2 crime, and you see sex offenses listed there, and you want to ask me what those sex offenses, exactly what those are, ask me. Hold me accountable, and I'll give you the best answers I can.
I'll fast forward to I did go to that UCR link, and it gave me the kind of 2025, where we are, 2026, there's nothing, it's a month in. But I saw that there were 10 offenses, but only 3 closed. Is that typical, like year over year, to have like 30% closure, if that's the right number, if those are the right numbers?
In what category?
I was going to say that actually touches on a lot of the questions that I'll have, which is like the distinctions between types of clearances, arrest to clearance, clearance to offense reports, that kind of stuff.
So then I will withdraw that question because it's going to hit a little bit later. So I guess the other thing I wanted to the article seemed to kind of is nipping around the edges of, at some point there was an expectation that the region was going to switch over and to the new FBI definition. I guess, is there kind of a definitive, well, we wanted to but didn't, or is there anything like that we can share kind of with the public here on what Ferguson Township did? And I know neither of you were here, but is there anything that you can share that you've heard in terms of how we made the transition?
All I can say is that we didn't know there was a change in the definition, and Ferguson it appears in looking at the UCR statistics, I wasn't here, it appears that Ferguson was delayed in making that switch as well, but they were ahead of the borough. Okay. And again, I want to be a little bit careful here. I no longer work for the borough. I was a part of this, so that's why I know there's questions. I understand that. But the borough has provided their response to that article. I was a part of that response, so I want to be careful speaking on behalf of the borough, answering a bunch of questions on behalf of the borough tonight. My goal tonight was to provide, you folks and the public with, this is what Ferguson Township's doing, this is what the expectation is, this is what we're reporting, and the borough has switched over to that too. I mean, that, again, we realized what we were doing wrong, and we switched ahead of being called out about it, ahead of the article. It wasn't like the article came to us and they said, "Oh, we got to switch." We switched ahead of that.
Yeah, and I'm not even going there. Like I truly am focused on Ferguson making the right switch, and it sounds like we made it before others. And that's 100%. That's great.
Yeah, they were definitely ahead of the borough based on my analysis of the UCR statistics. I saw the jump a little bit ahead of the borough, which surprises me because the agencies talk and work together and things like that. So this coming about, it surprised me that the record staff didn't all do it together, but that is what it appears.
So I really appreciate this because it's kind of helped me understand and I hope everybody, that there are resources out there, one of them being local, Center Safe here in town. Number 2, that the investigation and the charging are kind of separate. There's kind of collecting that data, there's an offense, there's some data and some evidence, and then it goes to the DA to make a decision on what the charge is. So as long, I want to make sure that Ferguson Township, we are doing the right thing, and we let the chips fall as they may. I'm okay with that, but I appreciate you kind of bringing and being up front with this. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Yeah. So my questions are. So I guess I'll start. In the article, it said that these offenses were coded as 0210. Is that accurate here in Ferguson? Like, is it the same code?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it okay if I just refer to them as 0210 offenses? Because if anybody is listening in, or would we prefer?
I understand, but without the key in front of me with those offense codes, I might make a mistake.
Okay.
So that's why I did that, because I want to make sure we're talking about the same thing
Yeah,
here.
and conversely, that's also why I want to use the code, is to make sure but, you know, they're one and the same. So, that being said, I did a little bit of digging here, and so to what you were talking about earlier, the FBI defines like offenses that have been cleared based upon 2 categories, and I want to double, like, this is leading to a question, so I'm not just on my soapbox. So it's by arrest or exceptional means. An arrest is broken down into 3 categories: arrested, charged with the commission of the offense, or turned over to the court for prosecution. And then cleared by exception is when the agency identifies the offender, gathered enough evidence to support an arrest, identified the offender's exact location, so the suspect could be taken into custody, or encountered, we'll say, an extenuating circumstance that prohibited prosecution or arrest of the individual. So there's 7 different reasons why an offense would be cleared. Does that translate here as well? Like, are those 7 reasons, or do we have internal tracking mechanisms of how an offense would be cleared? And I guess my follow-on question was, if so, because each of these 7 different instances are completely different contexts for how this, we'll say, like, how the justice system is progressing towards resolution, right? And so my question is, 1, are those 7 how we define clearance here? And if so, is it possible in the monthly reports that we can make those delineations? If not in the monthly, at least annually, like aggregated, because, you know, somebody being arrested is different than somebody being identification in this arena, obviously innocent until proven guilty, but still, like, at least allowing the community members to know how this is progressing. Is that something that is feasible? Or is this a discussion for a later date? Because that's something that, and I'll get into it, but I was going over a lot of the numbers, and the ambiguity around clearances and what specifically, like, what exactly that means leaves a lot of room for interpretation and data that, interpretation and data with this kind of issue is, we'll say, could lead to a lot of problems. So that's why I'm asking.
Okay, so thank you. That I can't answer all of that because I'm not going to consider myself an expert in it. But what I can say is what we deal with here locally is arrest or exceptionally cleared.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a couple of those others of the 7 there that I don't necessarily recognize. One thing I'll say about federal reporting is it's not always a straight line to the federal reporting, because what their standards are and what they want and what they're calling things isn't necessarily what we call something. Federal reporting kind of is for the entire country, and different, you know, obviously the states all have different statutes and things like that. What I deal with is whether it's an arrest cleared, they were charged, arrested, cited, whatever, it's arrest cleared. And then exceptionally cleared is, it met all the elements, but they were essentially warned, right? They didn't get arrested. So that's what we deal with, and as I understand it, and I'm sure you've looked at I'm getting more familiar with the board reports. There are arrest statistics in those board reports. I don't know if they line up with what you're seeing in the UCR reporting. And I can look at whether we can do that or not, but I know that we do put statistics on arrests within that. I don't know if it, I think it does say what they were arrested for. We don't include exceptionally cleared.
Gotcha. Okay, so
in that report, I do know that.
And with, like, internal policies and procedures, exceptionally cleared, of those 4 breakdowns, would you say it's identify, like, what would locally, what would exceptionally cleared mean?
Well, that means, like I said, warrant. I mean, it was something where they didn't get charged. It was a cleared case. We solved it, but they didn't get charged.
Okay. And so I guess that actually complicates my next question. So, like, what are our statistics used for in-house? Like, so I'll take a step back. Last year I saw in the budget, there was a DUI grant that we received. The police department got money for DUIs. So I imagine there's a grant reporting after the fact, and so you'd see like, oh, before, after, like, those metrics would be involved in the grant reporting. Is that about what our internal statistics are used for, stuff like that, or?
Yeah, I mean, those statistics are used for all kinds of things. I mean, it wouldn't be just that, but if we did get a grant, and I don't know exactly what they're reporting in that DUI grant, but we certainly have to report back the number of hours, and, you know, the statistics that those officers, you know, show that those officers did work, whether they were successful or not.
So the reason why I asked about the clearances and arrests is because you mentioned that Ferguson Township has done it, updated their reporting standards ahead of the borough, but it doesn't seem like they started in 2012 when, and this is my initial overview. So if we look at the reports, actually, if you want to, I mean, I can't share my screen here, but we see a massive divergence in the number of offenses reported around 2020, whereas the clearance and arrest rates stay the same, and this is the only offense that happens for. Everything else, all of these trends move in parallel with one another, and so I'm wondering, like, around 2020, is that when we, and I don't expect you to have the answer here, so I apologize, I'm not trying to, like, you know, catch you off guard or anything. But like I said, I was looking at these numbers, and so I see these divergent trends, and it leads me to think one of two things. Either we updated our internal reporting processes around 2020, and you know, maybe we need to go back to 2012 and like kind of how the Spotlight article was talking about how these 254 need to be backdated and updated and reclassified under this code. Is that something that we're going to need to do? And again, I don't expect you to have the answer like, oh, this is the exact date when we updated our federal, like our reporting guidelines. But over the past, I went through the UCR, so over the past 25 years, we've had 92 of these offenses in Ferguson. And over the past 5 years, 52. So a lot of, like, basically because this definition got expanded, you're going to get more reporting. So we expect to see that jump after we would be updating those procedures, which is why it leads me to think that that's around the time when that happened.
I mean, I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Okay,
I've already said that they were behind.
Yeah.
Based on my research, they were behind, but they were ahead of the borough. Borough didn't start until late 2022, but based on that graph that you're showing me, and I looked at the UCRs myself, that they started, I think it was 2019 or 2020. Okay. So yeah, they were behind. Now your other question about updating it, I don't believe we can. I asked that question already.
Okay.
I don't believe at this point we can because of UCR website changing and all of that, so we can't go back that far from what I've been told by the individual that I spoke to about it.
I guess that's tricky because, so what I like to use these statistics for is, well, regression analysis and all that, I say fun stuff, like I'm not a nerd. But the thing is, if all of this data is, publicly available, then we're in an academic area, there are a lot of people forming these kinds of studies based on I don't even know, like a criminology department might, be doing some kind of statistical analysis of so on and so forth. And if the underlying data doesn't have fidelity, then that could alter the results of the null hypotheses, which alters the policy recommendations, which this does have massive I don't want to say trickle down effects, but massive knock-on effects if the data is not consistent all the way back. So I'm like, is it just a matter of the software that prevents us from backdating to 2012? And if it's just a matter of software, will transitioning to the NIBRs? Will transitioning to NIBRs allow us to do that? Because
this is not what UCR is not under my control.
Yeah.
This is the state. This is their software. This is their system. So that's under my control. I was told that we could not go. I mean, I asked this question not for Ferguson, but for my previous employer, and I was told we wouldn't be able to go back past 2020 as a result of whatever their system changed.
They probably archived the data and see, you know.
Yeah.
It's just sitting on a data warehouse somewhere.
Now, maybe I'm wrong, but this is what I was told because that question already came up in regard to that, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so like, I mean, my main takeaway looking at all the data is like, I mean, I feel like we should know exactly when we made the change. I mean, I can look at the data and make a rough estimate, but I feel like having something like concrete saying this is when we started, you know, reporting these offenses or, you know, encoding these offenses under this broader category, would help.
Yeah, that's a good question. I understand that. The individuals that were here doing that aren't here anymore.
Do we not have?
So I mean, it's something I can look into, but I mean, it's kind of where we're at right now with it. And NIBRS will probably change things a little bit. Like I said, your board report's going to be different. We're going to be submitting to a whole different system. And things will be titled differently and things like that. I mean, UCR is going to be phased out.
So is there no internal document? Like, because this
Yeah,
would
there's
be
a records management system.
So, would there have been some kind of internal policy that says, oh, like we updated this or is it just word of mouth? Like that's, I guess my concern is how do we know, how do we know for a fact that this is when those standards started getting reported uniform? Like that's my big concern is because if we don't know the exact date, then again, fidelity of data becomes an issue, not becomes an issue, but is subject to, yeah. I'm trying to find a way to ask this, but I feel like we need some kind of actual date of when we started. I'm actually we need a solid date on when we started reporting rapes according to the federal definition, so that way we can know how much we the years in which those were not matching that definition.
Let me do this for you, Trevor. Let me look in the RMS system. I personally did this for Spotlight PA. And let me go in and look at sexual assault versus rape and see if I can find that clear delineation for you and give you an exact number. From 2013 to wherever we see that jump.
And
I can do that.
The numbers are less my issue and more, how do we know that this is what's being, where's the proof that this is what's being done internally? Is there a memo that was there a memo that said, hey, we are updating this, this is how we're going to be encoding these offenses from here on out? And if there isn't, then how did that policy get communicated downward? Mm-hmm. That's my concern, is because if there's no clear, this is the policy, this is what everybody's expected, that's, I'm not saying should I put on a right to know request for, but that is something that I think,
Well, I can tell you what I mean, there is no memo. I can write a memo and put it in writing, but I have, prior to this report, upon arriving here, have met with the staff and have made those expectations and determined that, yes, they are doing it correctly. I've looked at the statistics, they're doing it correctly, and they understand to keep doing it that way. And I'll be watching.
Let me help you out, Trevor. Do we do any, is there sampling done? Random sampling of kind of case files? Just say, all right, let me go look at this one, and you look at one, you open it up, all right, we have what could be an SA or a rape, and, well, there was a penetration of some sort, which is rape at that point, right? Because doesn't matter what it was penetrated with, it's penetration, so it's now rape. Okay, got it. And so, all right, did they code it? Was it 02110?
0210.
0210. Okay, the code right. Cool. Random sample. I'm done doing this. That I'm wondering is that something that's done? So because I think that's what I'm hearing from you, Mr. White, is how do we know we're doing this right?
Well, I mean, yeah, because with the particular Spotlight article, it was the person working in the records management that went down, or who was working in records, went to this training, came back and said, hey, we're doing this. Was there a policy developed internally that said, hey, we're doing this now based on how do those staff know to do this outside the written policy?
Well, it was communicated. There was no written policy. Again, now we're getting back to my previous employment. I'd rather stick with Ferguson. But it's been communicated, and when we do report reviews, the officer completes a report, it is reviewed by a supervisor, and then it is finally reviewed by records. So it's there's three parts to it. And those people are, expected to, they're all trained in different areas. Records are the ones that are ultimately doing that coding and making those decisions, and they are trained, and I will say they are trained higher than me, because I'm at the administration level. They're in the weeds doing it. They make those judgment calls and do those things. When it comes to this in particular, this is something, as I've already said to the board, I'm going to be looking at this one close to make sure that we're doing things right. And one of the first things that I did when I arrived here was making sure we were doing it right. This, because I've already been through this in my previous employment. So, I mean, if you feel that there needs to be a memo about it, I can write a memo, but I can check these as the chief of police. I'm oftentimes checking reports for not just coding, but oftentimes spot checking reports, looking at things like use of force, making sure that especially when there's a serious incident, I'm taking a look at it myself. That's just common that's my duty, right? And I'm checking these such things. So, that's the standard practice. And yes, I spot check, like you said, way beyond just this kind of thing, but many other things. That's the best assurance I can give you at this time, unless you're looking for something more.
I guess go.
If I may, I want to maybe propose something, because Chief, you said something rather important early on, that if folks have questions, to reach out to you, right? You're making yourself available. Trevor, I see data on your screen that I'd like to know a lot more about, and I'm wondering if there's an opportunity here for Chief and you to work together and really maybe answer some of those questions, then present it back to the board, because admittedly where I'm at right now is I'm getting muddled as to what we're looking to gain from this conversation, what questions we need to have answered specifically. I'm getting very muddled in that, and I want to make sure I understand that clearly in black and white.
Yeah, okay, so I guess my main question is, what date did we start reporting these offenses according to the updated category by the FBI?
Mm-hmm.
How do we know?
Okay.
This is the thing, is where is the proof that we have done this?
So this is
is there a paper trail that we have done this? Where can we say we've started updating these, or we have started encoding these offenses appropriately according to the federal standards on X date? That's and where is the proof for that? So that way we are able to say concretely, this is what happened. Yes, and we are doing
I see. Thank you.
Yes.
I think I can supply that. All I have to do is run rape versus sexual assault and see when I just stopped calling it sexual assault and made it rape. I mean, I did this for Spotlight. Personally did this for them when they asked the question, and I provided them that data, and it was a lot more. Numbers they have were personally provided by me.
Okay, and the reason I ask is because, I am looking at this data and we're seeing this massive divergence, and it's concerning, because that's a big number. And what we were just talking about with the clearances, I mean, we haven't dropped below 7 offenses since 2020, whereas before that, we never even went above 4. And our clearances haven't risen above 2. And because clearance by exception means identifying, that would mean at most 80% of these perpetrators are going unknown. There are 92.
Not necessarily.
Well, if they're not cleared,
That's not what that means.
right?
Ask the question. I would recommend.
If they are not, so if the definition of clearance by exception involves identifying the perpetrator and we are not clearing, then has that minimum threshold not been set?
The issue, if I'm hearing what you're saying, the issue with sexual violence is that not only are a lot of these go unreported altogether, but there, in many, many cases, these survivors do not want to follow through with prosecution.
Yes, but with this, it's like, if we started in 2020, then that's what separated this, and so the rates at which they have been cleared means that more people are coming forward, or not more people are coming forward, more people are having this classified underneath a different offense, but the clearance of that offense, that rate is not increasing, and that is, like I said, like if clearance is by definition identification of the perpetrator, which again, I'm actually kind of confused on because I thought it was innocent until proven guilty, and so identification of a perpetrator as being clearance is, that seems a little odd. But if the clearance rates have diverged as well, that, like, I would like to attribute that to the change in internal policies regarding encoding, because that would mean that, like, yeah, that would be the best case scenario, I feel like, because the worst case scenario is something like we don't even want to talk about. But is that, like, would you say that's the reason for this divergence in clearance versus reports?
My experience with sexual violence is that an incredible number of them, the survivors, do not follow through with the system. That doesn't necessarily make them exceptionally cleared. That's my anecdotal experience.
If I could just add, and I agree with everything the Chief has said, the focus was to make sure that when the Chief came here to evaluate Ferguson Township and to make sure that we were doing everything right, he thinks he has a mechanism to be able to go back and see about which day. I don't know if he could say exactly this day, but certainly probably this month, because you report UCRs monthly. So you could probably tell this month is when the change was made. And I would believe, because I looked at the same data that Mr. White did, I looked at data for all 4 police departments from 2012 all the way to 2024 when this issue came up. And I think 2020 to 2021, right around there is when Ferguson made the change. I think State College made it in late 22. The departments, 3 departments in the Center Region, didn't make the change for one reason. They were never notified, or none of the 3 can ever recall being notified in 2013. That's just where it had been made. But forget about that. When they learned about it, each department began to make the change. We weren't here in 2020. We can't attest to anything. What can we attest to is that going forward, this is what we're going to do. And the Chief has the ability that every time he sees anything of sexual violence, whether it's indecent exposure, open lewdness, sexual assault, anything, any sexual violence, he can bring that up on his computer and he can see how it was coded and he can assure you that it's been coded correctly. The responsibility is his. And that's where the supervisors need to trust that you have a chief of police that's going to make sure it's done right going forward. We can't do much about what's happened before, but the chief is on top of this. He has dealt with this for 2 years, meeting and meeting and meeting and meeting with Spotlight PA, giving them every piece of data he could possibly give them when other places didn't give them the data. He gave them lots of data. We weren't advised of it. When we were advised of it, it was fixed, collective by the departments, and the chief has promised you. It's internal crime data. We can't just give you the database and say, here, look for yourself. You have to trust that our chief of police is doing the right thing going forward. And we want the public to know the chief is not going to let this slip. And if anyone has any questions because they have a case and they see this month there's 117 is the numbers for sex offenses, 017 versus 02s for the rapes and others. If you see something you think is out of whack, call the chief and drill down on it, and I know he'll answer your question. But all we can attest to is we're doing it right now. He's going to assure we're going to do it right in the future, and at that point, we have to trust the chief.
It's not that it's not a lack of trust. It's
back to that memo. How can we be assured?
Yeah.
We all trust each other, and for a lot of things, we trust. I trust Todd has gotten our financials correct, and how do I know that the EIT number was exactly right? Well, because I know he's on top of his job, and he knows what he's doing, and he stays on top of it. So there's just, I think at that point, once you've asked, and I'm not saying you don't trust the chief. I understand the questions, but I think the best we can do at this point is to say, he's got it, he's going to be on top of this, and he's going to not let it go backwards here at Ferguson.
Any other board members had questions? I understand we have some members of the public. This has been a very important matter. I was going to say, would you be open to any public comments? And I understand sometimes the depth of what is being asked may not necessarily be able to be answered tonight, but there is that open door that anyone could follow up with the office tomorrow, schedule a meeting or a time to talk more in depth. So I just want everyone to keep that in mind.
So I think we've done quite a bit. If I may, maybe in this kind of, as you're opening up to the other comments, maybe keeping it to a couple minutes per person.
Yeah.
Okay with that?
Yes.
Yes. And yeah, just like we do with public comment at the beginning, try to keep it within 5 minutes. So.
Right. I was hoping to, but okay.
He was hoping to. Well, again, I want people to be able to have a voice. And I understand this is a sensitive matter, so.
I totally get it. I appreciate that.
And we'll start in the room. Any public comments? Not seeing any online.
Sure. First, I want to say this is a very touchy subject and is very emotionally charged. I appreciate this presentation very much. I do just want to highlight that the crime data being presented inaccurately is very misleading to the public. And, it makes a huge difference whenever, 2021, there were 0 rapes reported when in reality it was 30 or 31. And that's 30 people's lives. That's 30 violent offenders that are in the streets. These are people. This data is not just numbers. These are people and lives. And I do understand that this was part of something that was with your last place of employment. So I do apologize that this is kind of out of whack there. But I just really wanted to make sure that I got in here, whether I actually wanted to or not. I felt like I need to, because there are many people who suffer. And a lot of the reason that women don't follow through with prosecution is because, just like whenever, just a moment ago, the comment about you were hoping it was only 2 minutes and, I'm just going to be nice. It's just not taken seriously. And it re-victimizes us survivors over and over again every time that we're let down by law enforcement. by the systems of oppression that, we're living in abusive systems. And then we get it again through the legal system. And then when you go to the courts, it's a whole other thing. And so I just really want to highlight the fact that these are humans. There's 254 people that were charged with sexual assault rather than rape. You can get out of jail on probation on sexual assault. Rape is a state prison sentence, and you have to register on the Megan's Law offender list. So there is a huge difference in that, and it is felt not just by me in this community. It is felt by many others and men alike. This isn't just restricted to survivors feeling some type of way about it. I'm not going to keep going on and on. I just really felt like I needed to say what I needed to say and speak for survivors everywhere, because many people wouldn't, even have the gumption to come to this meeting to say what they want to say. But this is just too important right now. And you look at the complacency at the national level, we cannot have this at the local level either. So thank you for the presentation. Thank you for not getting up and walking out. That's all I have for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just for the record, your name and municipality residence?
Sure. The name's Krista Shawley, and I am a Ferguson Township resident.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Mr. Heller.
I just want to say, I think it's important too that some survivors are also men. And this can go a lot of different ways. And I just needed that to be stated. And I also applaud the presentation here and the information that is included on who to contact, Center Safe and others here in Ferguson Township. So truly, I appreciate that information, and if folks wanted to direct themselves to the presentation to have that information, it would probably be valuable. Thank you.
And I just want to say, Krista, I appreciate it, and I think I appreciate you coming up and say something. And this board, this was not a performative agenda item. This was we need to hit this head on based on the reporting, make sure we're doing it right here at Ferguson. And I think we've heard from the chief and the former interim chief I'm confident that the data is where it needs to be today. So I thank you for kind of bringing that to bear and also kind of talking through the data of yesterday. And I know it stinks to kind of have to talk through this, but we just need to sometimes just get out in front of this stuff and say, oops, right? We didn't hear about it. Let's move on. And I'm on that boat. Thank you. But thank you, Krista. I think we do need to continue to support and uplift survivors. And thank you, Ms. Pensick, for being here.
Yes.
Can I talk for 1 minute?
Feel free to come forward.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer Pensick. I'm the Executive Director of Center Safe. I have brochures, so if anybody wants any. But I did want to just thank you all for talking about this topic, because it's incredibly important for those of you in the room or listening and thinking, well, how big of a problem is this? It's a massive problem. The problem being sexual assault, domestic violence, stalking. So I really look forward to working with you, Chief Wilson. Just so that folks know even just what happens here in Center County, Center Safe, which has been around for 50 years, we support approximately 200 or so sexual assault survivors every single year. That's in 1 year and in 1 county. Add on to that another 900 or so domestic violence survivors, another 200 or so folks needing shelter and housing during the year. So there's a lot that happens here in Happy Valley when it comes to these crimes. So I think the more that we can talk openly about these things, the more that we are spreading resources. I just never want people to feel like they're kind of in this bubble and they think, oh, that's something that happens, over there. It happens here in every single neighborhood, every single demographic. Victims of sexual assault are women, men, every demographic you can possibly imagine. Center Safe is in the thick of it every single day, and we work with law enforcement, we work with legal providers, we work with community providers, because we want to get to the point where sexual assault isn't happening anymore. It's just, unfortunately, we're not at that point. And I've heard some folks talking about like victims and survivors, and every victim and survivor is very different. So some, when they are victimized, some want to report right away. And reporting to them could be contacting law enforcement. It could be going to the hospital. It could be telling a friend. Others may not talk about it for decades. And it doesn't mean that something didn't happen. It just means everyone's different, and the way that they process that trauma is really, really different. So I think if we all just try to support survivors as much as possible, spread awareness about resources, but also just, again, be willing to have kind of the uncomfortable, even semi-awkward conversations, I think that's where you're going to see a difference. So I really appreciate you all even just talking about it. I really enjoyed the, presentation, and I think if we all think about even whatever perspective we're coming at, we're all trying to have the one thing in common, which is making sure that people aren't being hurt, and that for those who are hurt, making sure that they have somewhere to turn to. So if anyone does want more information, I did bring resources as well, and I'll make sure that they're on display out there. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for.
Ferguson Township residents.
Thank you, Ms. Pensick, for joining the meeting this evening. Any other public comments, whether in the room or online? The board has nothing further. This was just a presentation, but follow-up is welcomed, whether contacting our staff or even any resources at Center Safe are also available for people to reach out on as well. So thank you, Chief. Next up, I have a proclamation.
Proclamation. Well, that's my cue too.
Or yes, you did volunteer to read the proclamation. So next up, we had a proclamation on the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania, to recognize February as Black History Month. And we have Miss Leslie Lang in attendance this evening. And to get started, we'll have Matt read the proclamation, and then you can share a few words.
All right, here we go. Whereas Ferguson Township is dedicated to celebrating diversity and creating an inclusive, welcoming environment for all members of the community. Whereas Black History Month is observed annually to acknowledge the struggles and profound injustices endured by African Americans throughout history, while also honoring their achievements and significant contributions in areas such as economics, culture, spirituality, science, law, and politics. And whereas the celebration of Black History Month started in 1926 from the work of Carter G. Woodson, a noted African American historian, scholar, educator, and publisher. And whereas in 1976, President Gerald Ford officially recognized Black History Month, and every U.S. president since then has continued to designate February as a time to honor and celebrate the significance of the month-long observance. Whereas each year, Black History Month is centered around an endorsed theme. The theme for 2026, A Century of Black History Commemorations, looks back on a century of organized efforts to study, preserve, and celebrate Black history in the United States and beyond. And whereas this theme highlights the critical impact of Black labor, both historically and today, in shaping Black communities and the broader society. It recognizes not only paid work in factories, the military, government, and other sectors, but also the contributions of social justice activists, volunteers, and those involved in building institutions within community groups and social organizations. And whereas it is important that we recognize the dedication, tenacity, and resilience exhibited by Black Americans to shape the Ferguson Township community for the better, and now therefore, the Ferguson Township Board of Supervisors does hereby designate February 2026 as Black History Month. We call upon public officials, educators, and residents of our township to observe this month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities, and recognize the tremendous contributions of the Black and African American community.
All right, do we have a motion to adopt the proclamation?
This is Patty, so moved.
And
Mark, second.
Okay. The motion having been moved and seconded to adopt the proclamation, the motion is now before the board, and I will open up the floor for public comments, starting with Ms. Lang.
Thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be with you today. I am a Ferguson Township resident for 20 years. On campus, I serve as the Director for Adult Learner Programs at Penn State and a past president for the Forum on Black Affairs and their 2023 Humanitarian. I'm also the Juneteenth Planning Committee Chair for the last 6 years and its founder. This year does mark the 100th anniversary of celebrating and recognizing Black History Month. The impact of these annual celebrations highlight Black life and history, and they have transformed the narratives of the nation. And yes, Carter G. Woodson launched Negro History Week in February 1926. And as a coordinated effort, he developed lessons on courage and teaching of Black history. It has evolved into the month-long observation thanks to Kent State in 1970, who officially recognized Black History Month, by President Gerald Ford, as you mentioned, in 1976, who urged the nation to honor the accomplishments of all Black people. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 ended legal segregation in public spaces and banned employment discrimination, marking a transformative moment in the struggle for racial equality and civil rights all across the United States. President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act, outlawing discriminatory voting practices and expanding protections that secured Black Americans' right to vote. Education continues to play a vital role in advancing our rights, and presently it is under attack again, making these proclamations urgent and necessary for all of us locally in our states. We just finished holding the annual celebration week, the commemoration for Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and our 51st banquet honoring his contributions and legacy, along with a day of service, with nearly 1,500 people attending just those two events. That shows you how imperative and how important it still is for all of us today. The theme of this year for us is undaunted hope. We must have self-determination, courage, and the desire to empower one another if we are to triumph over the current present evil situations. So let the township still proclaim and educate and celebrate the rich contributions of those serving within our community and those upholding the traditions. Voter engagement and economic justice are still our priorities. Decades of presidential support, until now, have advanced initiatives and sparked celebrations. Movies like Hidden Figures in 2016, you might recall, revealed 3 brilliant African American women who were mathematicians, who were human computers for NASA's spacewalk on the moon. We would never have known that. And that's in our lifetimes that discovery was released to the public. We've had Barack Obama, we've had Kamala Harris, we've had a whole range of wonderful, progressive strides. And for every generation, we continue to make these strides and speak of our significant contributions to education, to science, to politics, the arts, the entertainments, and all business industries. In the words of Lucille Clifton, "Won't you celebrate with me? Every day something has tried to kill me and failed." As Black people, we have a legacy of undaunted hope and resilience against oppression, a responsibility that educates future generations, and we continue to challenge the stereotypes. We strengthen our democracy by promoting social justice, dignity for all of humanity. I encourage council, township, and all the residents to come out locally to celebrate with us. I encourage you, Bellefonte Art Museum holds an underground railroad exhibition, A Journey to Freedom, this year for 2026. It's inviting visitors to explore stories of courage, resilience, and the pursuit of freedom with the artifacts and the images and the personal narratives. It's a chapter of our history we don't like to talk about, but it's necessary to remember. And all the individuals who actually risked everything in the search and pursuit of liberty. We also have the National Day of Racial Healing, which was nationally today, and we held a luncheon at the Borough Building, and it's free to the community. We will do it again next year. Look for it. It will be our 4th. The Center for Performing Arts has brought in Cirque Calamante Afrique. If you love African dance and acrobatics, you won't want to miss it on February 11th. We have an African American storytelling event on February 11th with the local residents telling their experience on how they built community. And you might want to hear that. I launched with Juneteenth 2 years ago, the 1865 Freedom Legacy Scholarship, and we gave away 3 high school scholarships to any college they want to attend last year. We will have a Beads of Brilliance gala that you're all entitled to come to. So please put it on your calendar for February 27th, and there will be additional events. Come on out, be part of the celebration and recognition of living history. Thank you for the proclamation this evening.
Thank you, Leslie. Any board or?
No, just thank you so much for coming, and thank you for your participation and coordinating with all of the local events. And last year, I really enjoyed the sneaker ball.
Thank you. Beads and Brilliance will be great. You don't have to. You can still wear your sneakers if you like.
Okay.
Cocktail attire. Bow ties are recognized. It'll be a sort of Mardi Gras theme. 3 dots. Come on now.
Sounds amazing. Thank you.
Mr. Heller.
I just want to say thank you. And just a point of clarification, I had to quickly pull it up here. The events that are going on at Bellefonte Art Museum with the walk, will it include the local Historia walk throughout Bellefonte?
I don't think they're currently doing the walk.
Okay.
But they still have it available. If you will recall, Donna King, who passed away in January several years ago, was the founder of that Lantern Walk.
Yes.
And they have not yet replaced her. But the docents will talk about the path that she took and what she used to do.
Okay. Wonderful opportunity with what the museum's doing and with everything. And again, just wanted to ask that question because it was so impactful for me. So thank you.
It still is. It's wonderful if you can get people to go.
Yeah.
Any other board comments? Just one last round. Anyone in the room or online had anything they wanted to add? If there is no further discussion, all those in favor of adopting the proclamation say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. Okay. Proclamation is hereby adopted. I will call for a 10-minute recess. Ms. Lang, if you would like a photo, we'll take that opportunity, and then anyone that needs to use the restroom, and then we'll come back around 5 till. All right. I will call us back to order, and we'll start with new business with our consent agenda. This evening, we have the Beaver Branch pay application, a donation request for the Juneteenth art exhibit and block party, an approval to reallocate funds in the liquid fuels account for microsurfacing to paving. And then we have the approval of the Landings PRD phasing update, as well as the Fox Point PRD phasing update. And two board member requests. One would be in a review and discussion of undeveloped land within the regional growth boundary, and the other one a continued discussion of current and planned economic development initiatives. If there are no board members that want to pull any of those, I would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
This is Patty, so moved. Oh, but Amari wants to pull something.
I would like to spend 1 minute on D, E, F, and G.
D, E, F, G.
You said D, E, and E, right?
D, E, F, G.
No, D and E, that's it, right?
That's, you know what? Just
I'm kidding,
D and E.
No, I was kidding. F and G,
okay.
yes. Happy to chat.
Okay.
Ms. Stevens, would you like to amend your motion
Yes.
to be A, B, and C?
Yes, so moved.
This is Amari second.
We have a motion to adopt items A, B, and C, and seconded by Mr. Patterson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. All right, next we have the approval of the Landings PRD phasing update. Mr. Patterson.
So this was more of a, the numbers in the document that were attached had, build out, completed, one of the phases, next year, 2027. And it wasn't quite, I don't know that that's possible. But so I just, for my own edification, I want to ask the question: are we holding on? Is this kind of a go ahead and approve it because there's something in the works? I'd like to have that kind of formal, public kind of knowledge of.
If I may add, because it's similar to this, I had a different interpretation of what was stated here, and part of my question is, I see final plan submission deadline. I don't see broken ground with houses on it. And it sounds like you're interpreting it as broken ground with houses on it. So whose interpretation is?
Your interpretation is right.
So we're not, and my question then is, when would we expect to see houses? That's the date I want to know. There it is.
We have our planning director here. We also have Pantera and the applicant S&A Homes here with us. I could speak to that.
If you like.
Tony Fruchtel with Pantera Engineering. We're the civil engineer for both the projects, the Landings and the Fox Point projects. So the requirement from the PRD plans is that this board gets an update on the phasing schedule. Our understanding when it was required to be submitted back in December was that we felt it would be simplest for this board if the schedule was not revised. Usually we feel like when the schedule gets revised, it gets pushed back, then the board says, when's this going to get done? And I didn't mean to imply exasperation with you folks, but we know over the course of the past couple of years that there's been some roadblocks with moving these forward. However, with the recent Mr. King's discussion at when he talked to the other managers and said that the township is really looking forward to development. Things are moving forward. I think he even specifically mentioned these two developments. The developers are looking forward to moving forward, with those things. And what we anticipated was approval of these phasing schedules as you see them now, that very shortly we'll be having discussions about how these move forward. What does it really look like? And we can get you real expectations of when plans will show up, when buildings will be in the ground, and when people will be able to buy lots and move into those units. So if I can call this a placeholder, I'm going to call it a placeholder, to be honest with you. We're fulfilling the requirements from the old plan, and with the anticipation that a new plan very shortly will have something, and you'll be able to ask all the questions you want, and we'll go over it. I'm sure it'll be an extensive process for figuring out what it looks like and how we move forward. That was a very long answer, but I think it's a complicated process.
If I may then ask a follow-up. So if I see a planned deadline for 140 multifamily homes by December 31st, 2029, what's the average time it takes from that final plan submission, if let's say it is on that last date, to when we would normally see houses built? Is there an average or a window?
A year. Year's a pretty good estimate from the time that we submit that plan, gets through a process, gets approved, and then infrastructure gets built, and then houses get built. So a year's a good estimate.
Okay, so if I'm understanding then this in totality, that plan submission is the date that you will submit a plan, and then the clarity around building happens, and then the buildings are usually in the ground here, we'll say within a year and a half after that, some time frame like that.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And what's neat about what you just said there is you can start moving dirt when the preliminary is approved. And we've done that several times where, ARL, we approved the preliminary, they had bulldozers out there immediately moving dirt. So it's even, I don't know, it's probably outside number, but it might even be earlier that they start moving dirt, which is a big mound on, no, just kidding. But cool, thank you so much. I'm ready to make a motion unless there's anything else you need to say.
If everyone's going to take a motion.
Well, wait, but F and G, did you?
I was going to do D&E and then
Oh, okay.
So I moved to approve D&E.
I'll second.
D&E? All right. All those in favor of approving consent agenda items D and E, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Okay. Next so thank you, Tony.
Yeah, we'll hopefully be back in shortly.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. I just requested F and G, Mr. Heller, just from
Please.
They actually dovetail on D&E.
Yes, they do.
And so I wanted to give an opportunity to kind of talk through F if you wanted to, and I'll just pause there.
Yeah, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that, and they do dovetail nicely, because part of the one that I was bringing up, specifically EF, had to move my thing, the member request for the continued discussion on undeveloped land. Essentially, what this is all about, as you can see in the memo, is we have undeveloped land within the regional growth boundary, and I'd like to understand better what we can do as a township to incentivize and look at getting buildings built. Bottom line, working with developers and having a conversation around that, because as we've seen from I'll just lay it bare. As we see from the earned income tax discussion and everything else, we can directly impact revenue to the township and the support for our residents if we have more money coming in. And when we have more residents in homes, single family or multifamily, we can improve our position here within the township and services to our community. So this is in that spirit, is trying to understand what that undeveloped land looks like, what potential rezoning conversations might have to happen. So I don't know, and I don't have all the answers for what this would entail, but it's looking at the PRDs, the planned residential developments, the traditional town developments, the TTDs, the single family residences, R1, and what obstacles might be out there for developing those lands with developers. I know historically we've had conversations, we've been informed that we cannot openly or have discussions with developers in an open context. I still don't
Point of order,
understand.
is this a consent agenda item, or is this the discussion now?
Oh, no, this is me just explaining what's in the memo. No discussion.
I was interpreting, he
Oh, I'm
was just
sorry.
kind of
Okay,
stating
yeah,
his
no,
case for what this would entail.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all. So there was so if there were questions about what that would come back on, I would hope people would ask me, and then we would ask maybe the manager for any clarification on. So I was just laying that information out there. But that's all it is. It's to better understand that and see where the conversation goes. And I'll bring up more at another point. But that was F. Any questions about that?
So, I guess my main question is, so with something like this, if you bring this forth, it goes on, it's on the consent agenda, actually, we'll get to the processes and procedures and all that stuff. Would you be planning on doing a presentation with it, or is it just a discussion, or?
No, this would be pretty much working with the manager on laying out what that would look like, maybe answering some of these questions, the township staff coming back with information about these areas, and really having an evolved conversation that we would have to revisit over time. I don't believe this would be a one-time discussion. I don't think anything we do is really a one-time discussion, but really setting us up for ongoing conversations around these spaces.
So basically like a discussion on, so not just on undeveloped land, but also like how that undeveloped land can be used, we'll say, efficiently to address the problems that we have in Ferguson. Is that the spirit of it?
That would be the spirit.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So an outcome, but that outcome would not be at, let's say it made it to the next agenda. That outcome would not be at that time, because it would take a lot of work to get us to that point, I believe.
So I'm sensing when this is deliberated at an upcoming meeting, it's just basically a review and a discussion, and then maybe any subsequent would be followed up with either options from staff, or, I don't, at least at the next meeting, I don't want to get into like staff direction until, the manager's able to kind of review and see, what's appropriate, but yeah.
Yes. And in the spirit of what Ms. Stevens has raised as well, yes, I will elevate the conversation to, that's the spirit of this one for a future conversation.
Right. Any other questions on Matt's item?
No, so if I'm prepared to close out E and F if you'd like. If you want, or do you want to talk about
F and G.
Sorry, F and G.
Sure, unless folks wanted to talk about G or have any questions.
Any questions on G?
Since it was polled.
I pulled it. I gave you an opportunity to talk through both, but
nope, I'm good then.
I'm good then. Good. I move to approve F and G.
This is Patty, I'll second.
Approval of F and G will constitute a full deliberation at an upcoming Board of Supervisors meeting. So, having been moved by Mr. Patterson, second by Ms. Stevens, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. Right. Got it. Thank you. Next up, we'll have a review and discussion on procedure for agenda topic submission for Board of Supervisors meetings, and I will recognize the manager.
The purpose of this agenda item is to review the board's current board member request procedure, most recently adopted in Resolution 2026-02. January 5th, 26 Board of Supervisors meeting, there was a discussion about what, if any, procedure is necessary for board members to have items included on future meeting agendas. The board did adopt Resolution 2026 with the understanding this topic would be included in a future agenda to discuss possible modifications. So within your packet, you've had the current resolution, a summary of that I used during orientation. It's like a one slide. Here's how it works. I think we just saw it in action moments ago as to how it works. A memo from Board Chair Thompson that also has a proposed process that could be considered. I also included making sure whatever we do, make sure it's consistent with the law and the Home Rule Charter. I'm not going to read the whole memo, but that's the intent of of the, this agenda item. I don't have a recommendation, but it's to the board for discussion.
Yep, so we'll open, I was gonna say open the floor for discussion, any questions? This was, what I had brought forward to the manager in the packet. I actually stemmed back from our board discussions in November. You may have recalled there was some recommendations on how board member agenda item request came forward. Based on that discussion, I did some reflection and drafted the proposed process back in November. I was meant to bring that forward sooner, but there was a lot of activity over the past couple months. So when Mr. Patterson touched on this at the beginning of the year, I decided to bring this forward as the manager was open to rediscussing how board member agenda item requests come forward. So I will recognize Mr. Patterson, who did also have a proposal on how the board member agenda item request fit into the procedures.
I think I'm just gonna repeat what I said last month, which was the way in which it was put in place came from a place of, I'm gonna be nice. It came from a place of maybe a lack of understanding of Robert's Rules of Order. It came from a place of also wanting to put a little bit more a box around some humans that were perhaps that the board perhaps didn't agree with. I'm not saying it was right. I'm not saying it was wrong. But I am saying that we know how to use Robert's Rules of Order on this board, and so we don't need all this rigmarole. If someone has an item, yeah, send it to the manager. And we can put it into may send it to the manager. But if we as a board agree to talk about something, then we as a board can talk about something, period. If the public, per our charter, wants to talk about something, they have a week to do it. So I don't know why we need this kind of other thing. It's been around since 2017, but again, for the reasons I stated earlier, which I don't think they were well intended, quite frankly. So, we advanced a thing that was not well intended. I don't want to advance it any longer. So, again, if the board wants to talk about it, the board can talk about it. So if you don't want to talk about something, you vote no. Trevor utilized this vote earlier, you know what? No. And that's okay.
So what's the difference here? The
difference here is that, I was
just gonna say, can we lay it out step by step? Your process, your proposed process, how does it differ from your proposed process? What is the strengths and weaknesses of each?
Okay. So what I'm saying is use Robert's Rule of Order, period. And the charter. The charter says the manager shall prepare the agenda, period. So the manager can put whatever they want on the agenda, which is likely the right things to be on the agenda. They've got some ordinance changes. They've got some pay apps for consent agenda. They're just things that need to go through the board, whether it's just procedurally or substantively, period. It's things that when a board member wants to bring something to the table, where at least in the old process and kind of what was drafted, it still has some layer of gatekeeping by folks other than the board. So the board should decide what the board wants to talk about. If there is some, and I don't disagree with like the tiers. It's like, hey, this is a tier 1, this is tier 2. Well, we can decide that. Like, you can put that in your head, like, talk about this thing, it's a tier 1. But again, I'm simply looking to, the board needs to exercise its authority with charter saying use Robert's Rules of Order, and it's laid out in there.
No, go ahead. Well, I guess I was just gonna push back on, I'm not sure of your history.
Maybe I got bad information, sure.
Right, I just because you were saying that it was sort of like, not well-intentioned, and I don't know either, because I came on in 2020, but, to me, I sort of like having the process, and I liked your tier things as well. And when you say that it's people other than the board putting it together, it's actually a manager who has to work with the staff and realizing that they want to be the most responsive to the board as well as not overwhelming staff. And it says that you work with the manager to, the chair works, excuse me, I'm saying you, like everybody understands that I'm pointing to Jeremy, that the chair works with, so it really is more than just other people putting together our agenda. That's all I wanted to push back on, but I like having a process in place. I think it's sort of short-sighted just because this board, to have a process that is sort of future-proof, helps future boards, because we may not always have a board that is willing to follow Robert's Rules of Order and that sort of thing. So I like having a defined process. It's just me, but sorry.
I don't disagree with that. I think when the process is used to, I guess it was cherry picked to use this process sometimes, but not others. And again, Robert's Rules of Order has its ways in which you can use it to advance some things. It allows the board to decide if we want to talk about something else. And so maybe if there's a line or two that says, well, if the board decides they want to add something into the agenda, the board can. Per Robert's Rules of Order. It's just when, again, my experience over the last 2 years is that there have been items that were not on the agenda for quite some time. It wasn't okay for me. Mr. Heller has had items not on the agenda for quite some time.
So I'd like to share an experience and then a recommendation.
Okay.
The experience that I had to get these 2 items on the consent agenda was fantastic. All I did was send an email. That was it. And the next thing you know, poof, there they are. And we're talking about them. Granted, I did go a little off topic and I got too deep, but they were there without any necessary follow-up. It was easy. I just said, here's what I want to talk about in the consent agenda. Boom. Now, after this, we can see them on the agenda. So we're talking about a process that went very smoothly. I like that. That worked out very well. So that's one side of it. But I think there's another side we have to talk about. It's those items that come forward, especially even as we've seen recently, between meetings, where it goes, oh, wait, this is a conversation we just heard at COG. Maybe we want to have a conversation about it. Or maybe it's just too late because it was on some committee meeting XYZ, but it's just too late for the agenda. I see no issue with exercising Robert's rules for things that are de minimis in nature. So that's the caveat, though. De minimis. Things that we can talk about and discuss, but not pass resolutions or motions with, but rather discussion that essentially is acting like that consent agenda item, but at the last minute. And then we say, okay, good, that is something we definitely need to talk about. We're not going to go past de minimis tonight. Boom, let's get it on. So it's like a quick in to the consent agenda. That's what I see here as exercising a form of Robert's rules. Even though Robert's rules could say, no, you want it to be the second item that you hit and we vote on it, it is instantly. I see it as saying, let's talk about it, de minimis in nature, treating it like a consent agenda item and moving forward. I appreciate the tiers and everything, but I'm also a very simple person. And I know sometimes I can get bogged down on, well, it hasn't met this one criteria this way, but maybe it does this. And I really just think having the board look at it as de minimis, having a light conversation about it like it's a consent agenda item, and then putting it on for a future agenda handles both sides of it. Both those things that can be done in advance in an email, which went seamlessly, thank you, and those things that come up right before an agenda item or before an evening. That would be my proposal, keeping it simple.
So, upon reflection of this, I think maintaining some type of internal submission policy would provide value because it supports some structure, predictability for staff, the board, members of the public, and understanding what the manager compiling the agenda. It also sometimes does involve coordination of certain presenters or even staff. Like if use Kim for instance, if Kim's going to be on vacation for our next meeting and there's a planning thing, the manager is going to be like, hey, let's move this to March because this is maybe an item that could use staff expertise that won't be there. I have done some process. I've been kind of evaluating at least where this Coleman Supreme Court case got ruled, where, if you recall, up until November it was, you can't put anything on the agenda last minute. It's got to be properly advertised. Now it's been ruled that as long as it's de minimis in nature and majority of the board approves, you can put it on the agenda. But I don't necessarily want us to get into this habit of just throwing stuff on the agenda right in the meeting without the public or even the staff being afforded the opportunity to prepare for it, because I think our discussions and board actions can be more robust and constructive when we give certain items the proper prep work going into a meeting. But to Matt's point, and I think there may be instances, like especially if something comes up in like a COG committee and there's a tight turnaround where, maybe we do need to have a process of getting those onto the agenda quickly. But what's the best process that doesn't put everyone in a head spin all the time? Because wouldn't want us to necessarily be doing it constantly, but just sparingly. Mr. Patterson.
You said two things.
Yep.
Twice, actually. One of them twice, and that is, I don't want. The second thing that you said was you didn't want it to take action. And so that's what de minimis is that we're not taking action. So I don't think any agenda item that's been requested to add has been actionable. It's been around kind of a onesie-twosie things that has come in the gaps and seams. And that's really what we're talking about. So we really need to separate what we're trying to do from just in terms of, again, I have had zero issues with a smooth process that does not, that is followed kind of, that is moving through quickly. I don't have any problems with that. It's when it's used in some other way that then, you know, that person becomes frustrated. And I'm just that person, me, I have been frustrated with the process, which is the same words for the last 2 years, used in the way that it has. So, if everybody's okay with what we did today, then we can keep this process. We don't have to change a word. But I just like, you know, let's, again, yes, the charter says thou shalt have board procedures. The charter says manager will prepare the agenda. Cool, got it. Charter says citizens, you know, within 7 days can add an agenda item. Cool, got it. Let's make sure they have it. And the charter says we use Robert's Rules of Order. So in totality, using all those things together, and with the court decision, there are de minimis things that can be added to the agenda on the day of the meeting. So if we're all aligned there, then we don't have to change a single word. But if we're not aligned and we need to vote on adding a word or two that says, hey, de minimis items on day of the board, no actions are allowed, then let's add that to the board procedures, please. Thanks.
Mr. Heller?
If I may, I know sitting on COG committees, there's always the question, at least the ones that I'm on, does any board member have any items that are of de minimis nature for the agenda? What if we just called it out as a line item on our agenda going forward? Any de minimis item to be added here. Again, de minimis, no action taken. Maybe a discussion, that's it. Treat it like a consent agenda item. You're not going too deep. Someone's going to gavel you out in the room. Maybe it might be Miss Stevens. She'll gavel me out.
I want to gavel you out.
But if we called attention to it, so there is an avenue to do that. We acknowledge the de minimis approach, which again we do in COG. And we have a process that works very well, which I love, and I can't wait for other supervisors to try it. There wasn't even wordsmithing. It's like, hey, look, whatever Matt put out there, we're just going to lift and shift. So if Matt says something really stupid, the public's going to see it. Yeah. And that's okay. That's accountability.
Absolutely.
Great. So put it out there for us to then put on for a future agenda item. That worked seamlessly. So I think we got this. I do, but if we maybe had a little bit more clarity on adding de minimis items, maybe it's an extra line on the agenda, and we just leave it at that. And it's just a question, anybody have any de minimis items?
I like that. I think it's great because I would like to keep the process we have in place, but I think, didn't we in the beginning also establish the agenda? So is that something we would have to go back and amend?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Okay.
The manager.
You know, interfere with the supervisors discussion. I don't think we're too far apart. It sounds like we can get there. I just want a couple things just to make sure we keep in mind, and I'm not saying anything that's being talked about that we're out of line, but the charter says that we have to post our agenda within 3 to 7 days of actions. So the reason for that is under the Sunshine Law, the whole purpose of the Sunshine Law, and us going further, Sunshine Law only requires 24 hours notice. Our home rule code requires more. And so we're giving the public more notice to the public, this is what we're going to discuss at this meeting. So if you have any interest in any of these topics, get online or show up. And so the more we can adhere to our existing agenda, so I really believe that exceptions to the agenda of adding things should be a real exception, even if you aren't going to take action, because even if it's just going to be discussion, you may not take action tonight, but it might line itself up for action in the future because of something that you discuss that's de minimis, 5-10 minutes, but it could lead to other action. And some public are wish that they would be part of the discussion from ground zero. And so I really think it's important that we have a policy that if you have an agenda item, that it's submitted as Supervisor Heller did, and then we follow the procedure we have. But adhere to our 3 to 7 day, and then when it's just absolutely necessary, it is lawful, and I've talked with the solicitor about this. There is the legal right under new business to add an item that would come to a vote of the full supervisors. If someone wanted to add an item, they make a motion that I'd like to add an item to this agenda. Someone seconded it. If affirmative vote is made, then you can discuss the item. But as the solicitor said, you can't take any action. It's just not good practice from a standpoint of the Sunshine Law and making sure that our public is involved from the very beginning. So I think it should be the real exception. I think we need a process. And if there's an item that we think you want to discuss, we put it on. And if it's just a matter of something de minimis where it's really more communications than action, it's really going to be an open and shut today. It's going to be 5 minutes and we're going to be done with it. It's not going to lead to further action. That's truly de minimis. And it's just either under reports, it's under communications, what have you. But I urge you to either stick with the process that we have, and then under the real dire circumstances where it has to be brought up because of some circumstances that you could justify, it would always be good to let the manager know that, hey, just so you know, I'm going to bring this item up. And while it might not be out for sunshine, at least the manager who could alert any staff aren't going to be blindsided by it. So it's just best practice. So keep in mind the purpose of the sunshine, the purpose of advertising our agenda, what the topics are, and then use that exception really under those extreme needs.
Mr. Heller.
A point of clarification around the exception. Would that be to take action?
I think the solicitor, according to her interpretation to me, is that you couldn't take any action if you add it. You can't take action if you add an item at the 11th hour.
Thank you. So that exception still does not approve action?
That's correct.
Okay, I needed clarification on that. I appreciate it. You're calling it the exception. I'm calling it more the nuclear option.
Right.
But again, Robert's Rules allows for it. So I'm good with that, and I think that's even closer to maybe what Mr. Patterson might have been looking for earlier, but I don't know. It's closer, I think, than what I had thought about getting something into a consent agenda quicker. It's more of it's in new business, there it is. Talk about it, but no action. Okay.
I guess just to get everyone's opinion on this, what I also drafted, at least I didn't mention this, and my intent was with the revised process, it wouldn't even go to the consent agenda. If it went to the manager and it was ready to go, it would be in new business. But, if we as a board want to vet board member agenda proposals through consent agenda, that, I'm good with that.
If I may, I think it's important to vet through consent agenda for no other reason than to allow the staff the time to respond and build and be prepared without things coming swinging in on a vine every week or something, like every time that we meet. So I think it builds the case or builds the momentum towards the action, which maybe allows more time for us to do, for staff to take the time that's necessary. And I just wouldn't want to burden staff, again, swinging a pendulum every couple weeks with items instead of, it's in the consent agenda. We can at least be planful that this thing is going to be coming soon after that. Let's start working towards it. Again, I just think it would be more respectful to our staff.
I guess my confusion is how that same logic doesn't apply to the Robert's Rules of Order for the pre-screening of if the item, like for example today, is just a discussion for a future date, and it goes to the consent agenda, but Robert's Rules of Order allows us to put something up for discussion that day, then is that not duplicating the same issue? Like, if we're concerned about
Yeah.
staff on, like, if we're concerned about staff time, if something is not vetted by the consent agenda, but we put something on through Robert's Rules of Order, how are we not therefore, like, ignoring that previous concern that validates the necessity of it being pre-screened by the consent agenda?
If I may, I believe they were different, because what I heard Mr. Thompson say was that you would submit it and it wouldn't even go to the consent agenda, it would just be on the agenda. So theoretically, in 3 to 7 days beforehand, I could do that, and all of a sudden, boom, it's an agenda item. That staff could be scrambling for 3 to 7 days to try and figure out what Supervisor Heller wants, and all of a sudden I've taken them away from priorities and other things. That to me is concerning. And that's why I believe that proposal, I probably wouldn't go for.
Yeah, and I think having to put something on the agenda in a meeting is even more, it presents even more challenges for staff, like, if we.
That's just not true.
I will actually push back.
That's just not true.
Well,
it's 100% not true, and as evidenced by what we're going to talk about later today.
But if for an example, if I was to come into the meeting and say, hey, I want a full-fledged presentation on last week's snowstorm, would the proper staff actually have?
That's not de minimis.
And that's the part that we have to remember, is de minimis, yeah.
That's not de minimis. So it's just, I mean, I'm happy to talk through more examples. I think an example to talk through is the presentation that Chief gave today. That when I saw that article, I emailed our manager King and said, hey, sir, can we talk about this? I'm curious. I don't know. Help me out. How's Ferguson doing? That was a long time ago. And I didn't ask for that on any other meeting. It was, hey, when you can get, we'd like to talk through this at the best available time, and that's today. So that I would not have asked anything like that, and I think that if you had come to say, hey, I want Chief to talk about the UCR reporting today, and you came in, I'd be like, dude, we probably should give the Chief some time. No, I'm not for that.
My point, yes, get
the board. But if Patty said yes, and you said yes, and Matt said yes, then yeah, we'd be asking the Chief to talk about UCR off the cuff. That's the power of the board voting. Again, it's just, I think your concern is, hey, I don't want some rogue board member doing some rogue thing. Again, back to the words de minimis. Back to like what the procedure's intent was versus how it was used. Intent was, okay, I got a thing, it's gonna go on a consent agenda. We've got 2 items today we talked through. Okay, good. That's a fine process.
And if I may, these 2 things are colliding at the same time. We haven't had experience with what just happened this evening of consent agenda, good, future action, great. We haven't experienced that yet. We might start to use that and go, wow, we can actually address everything through that process, and that works. Which would then even cut down more on the potential to use the exception rule or the nuclear option, et cetera. But we haven't really tried this. So it sounds like, if I were to summarize, we have something that's in place, just tested out this evening over the course of the last 2 weeks via an email, it worked. And we have there's something of a de minimis nature that has come up, we'd like to go ahead and move it on to new business. We can take a vote on it that night, but no action. It sounds like we have both of those things in place right now. So I say, let's exercise them and see how it goes.
Information asymmetry can create a lot of friction for staff. And so I want to use the bad meeting as an example. When we were thinking about raising taxes and everybody was angry and everybody came out and somebody asked a question. I don't remember who it was, but somebody asked a question which was, how much money do we spend on consultants? Mm-hmm. And the answer was, I don't know off the top of my head. Sure. Right. And so if we're having these types of discussions off the cuff, and we have a lot of staff who they don't know off the top of their head because they didn't gather the information in advance of this because they didn't know that they were going to have to do homework on, I don't know, how many tax parcels are zoned R1 versus R2, if we're having a discussion about that. My concern, and I don't want to speak for staff, but that's my concern here, is if we start doing that too much and then create the environment whereby every time someone comes into this for a meeting, they're not going to know what they're expecting. That's, and to be honest, that is a pretty, I'm not saying that, to what you were saying, there are exceptions, I can't remember who talked about it, I think it was you, the CR cog, it didn't fall within the 3 to 7 day window. There are, I would say there are exceptions that could be written into the policies, but just because, Robert's Rules of Order says we can do this, Robert's Rules of Order says a lot of things that frankly I don't agree with, and I think that this is a good example of one of the shortfalls that it has. And so I'm cautious about this because I know I would be concerned if I came into a meeting that is now going to 9 o'clock. If I came in every other week and was just having to do broad research in order to be able to answer questions that could arise spontaneously, I don't know. I think it would put me in a lot of stress. Yeah. So that's why I'm a little skeptical about being I don't want to say being able to, because right now we are able to. We did it. Right. But doing it again and again and again and again, because like I was telling Chief Wilson, every policy decision that I have is based on an Excel spreadsheet. Do you want me to be coming in here and having a discussion where there is a massive information asymmetry here? Let's make sure that we're on the same page about the discussion. We're all coming together. We've all done our homework. We're all informed on the matter, and we'll have an actual productive conversation instead of one person being the one person leading the conversation, so to speak, because they're the person that's done the research. They're the person, and not necessarily that's a bad thing if one person is, doing the most, but if it's the same thing again and again and again, it does seem like it removes a lot of the deliberation and instills power into individuals as opposed to from the body. And again, we can vote on that, but what are the other, we'll say, unintended consequences in interpersonal dynamics and friction that will introduce as a result?
Mr. Haller?
So if I may walk through that scenario, what I would see here is if somebody came in, hi Trevor, and you had data and information, Excel spreadsheets that you wanted to go, that's great that you have that. The question about being de minimis, we would say, hold on, whoa, time out. It sounds like you're going, you know something? Do we all want to take a vote and see this on a future agenda item, right? Because that's what it would be. And then we would say, yes. And that's when that's the authorization to move forward, because to keep it de minimis, we wouldn't see spreadsheets, we wouldn't see data, we wouldn't see any of this.
I mean, I'm going to push back on that hard because if I'm going to be talking about something, I'm read up on it.
But that's the difference. The definition of de minimis needs to be adhered to.
So is it de minimis in terms of actions? But we had a 7-slide presentation. I would say that's I feel like de minimis is a good example. We had a discussion about this. There's no significant policy changes. There's no significant actions to be taken. That is, would we consider that a de minimis item? No? Okay. What would we consider a de minimis item?
Yeah, I really.
If it's up to talking about, and if it's the last Center Region Council of Government meeting that we all sat and were party to.
So,
and having some reflection on that.
So, what about it though? And what makes that de minimis?
We could talk about it at that moment in the agenda, but again, I mentioned there was a specific topic that we talked about at COG, and so to have some reflection on that and alignment in just a few minutes.
The manager.
I would encourage the board, we have a process that's been in place. We now used it today. It's a process that worked its way through the system. It's going to be on a future agenda where staff will be well prepared for it. In many cases, there's an item at the end of the board meeting called communications to the board that usually in my short time has been because you heard from a resident and they wanted to convey something. Many of these things we probably in our mind are thinking of communications, since it can't have action. And if it's supposed to be de minimis, which could be in the eyes of the beholder, it doesn't need to be an agenda topic. So we probably have a place for it already on our agenda under communications to the board. It could also be discussion, communications and discussion with the board. If it's de minimis, it should be something that is resolved on the spot. Short discussion might get sent back for action item or agenda item at a later time. But I think as much as we cannot be going outside of what we've advertised as our agenda, we already have where we have communications to the board. That's as much as we define it, and that's lawful how we define it. The public knows there's going to be some communications by the board to each other at the end of the meeting. And that's where I think a lot of this that's not following 2026-02, the process we just used, I think we rely on those two areas. If it can't fit in there, and it absolutely has to be dealt with at this meeting, and it's not something that you could give to the manager to bring up at the next meeting, then you always have that right under Robert rules and take a vote like you did tonight to add it. But I really think that should be the exception, and otherwise it should be communications and discussion among the board with no action towards the end of the meeting, and not be adding things actually to the agenda. It's just part of the agenda. It's communications. And follow the practice we have in place. The only other thing I want to say, and you'll hear me say it often, but as items come up that are going to be suggested by the Board of Supervisors, it'll go on the consent agenda. But there could be things come up that we really need the board to consider by putting this and approving this under the consent agenda. You're going to create extensive staff time. So I would have the conversation with the person wanting it on the consent agenda, and it'll be able to go on there. But I'm going to explain, just so you know, this is going to have some real staffing consequences. And explain that so that as the five of you are making a decision about whether to add this, do we have to now start talking about if we're going to do this and add this item, we're going to have to think about something else giving. Now that would be something pretty extreme, but we have to understand workload. So I recommend we continue with the practice and handle as much as we can under communications to the board.
I'm okay with that suggestion.
I agree. No action on this agenda item. I mean, it feels like there's alignment.
Yeah. I'm confused. I actually don't feel like I feel like there's still something going on here, and I'm not picking up on it. We add items onto the agenda as like the exception, but if we don't, but we still want to like talk about something,
continue to say no. And at the end of the agenda, the communications to the board, there's an opportunity to speak your piece, I guess, for me to speak my piece.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. I was like,
for me to speak my piece.
Yeah. So like, if it is like, so if today your item didn't make it, communications just, hey, real quick, this. Okay. I actually don't think that's a bad idea. I think that's okay. doesn't create a lot of staff? Okay, yeah.
None of us did. It never did. Everything that I brought to the table was I wanted the board to talk about a subject and get some feedback and some, feedback from the board.
I'll leave it.
Anything else on this agenda item?
No.
Guess which direction we want to take. I took some notes.
I move to leave it as is with alignment on kind of using Robert's Rules of Order and
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Patterson has made a motion. Mr. Heller has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion passes. Next will be our COG committee reports, and we have the Parks and Recreation Governance Committee.
All right, thank you. So at our last meeting, we discussed the maintenance agreement between Center Region Parks and Recreation and each individual municipality. Actually, not each, more of an overview that will have to be tailored with each individual municipality. Basically, Center Region Parks and Recreation Agency was putting into place what they actually do. And then they would execute an agreement with each of the individual municipalities. And so that we voted to forward that on to the municipalities. And I believe I saw the email that it did go to the manager and myself as well. So it will come to the board. They were also just following up that the interagency agreement should come to our board for comment, and the comments need to be due back to Center Region Parks and Rec Agency Director by March 18th, I think was the date. And just trying to clear up all the roles between the agency and the authority and the municipalities. And sometimes it's been mind-numbing, the conversations, but overall, there've been good discussions. The one thing I do, just in that conversation we had, it said even though they'll have an agreement, maintenance agreements with each of the municipalities, they still rely heavily on the public works departments of each municipality to help with their efforts. And the one thing they did talk about was playground inspections, and that while they do have playground inspectors on CRPR staff, when you initially put in your playground, so I instantly was thinking of like Two Deck and Kaboom when we do those in April, the initial install needs to have an independent audit, not the inspectors from CRPR. And that was about all I learned in that meeting, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Heller.
Yes, just very simply, kind of dovetails into what we were just talking about. Would there be a future agenda item then to talk about the feedback or to review these things more formally?
I believe so. That's why it was, the manager was included on it, so that they could put it in.
I'm looking forward to it.
And the agreement has been sent to our solicitor for her review, and on the actual agreement part from a legal standpoint. And then once I get her feedback, we'll put it on an agenda. We have to have comments back to CRPR by March 18th. So it'll be on probably the second meeting in February or the first meeting in March.
Perfect.
Our first meeting in March.
That was my only question. I appreciate that.
And anything you need from your COG committee, it doesn't follow, it doesn't go through the board
No,
member.
no, it doesn't.
You just send it to the manager and the manager, yeah.
Or COG is ring-a-dinging the manager. To
Right,
say-
or they contact the manager and say, hey,
Yeah.
your board needs to
You're a
discuss
derelict board
this.
member. Trevor.
Yes.
So independent auditor upon initial install, how is that selected? Because I know we have like an independent auditor for finances, like Baker Tilly, not associated with so I'm curious about that. I mean.
Oh, I don't know. It was a term they used. I'm sure James can answer that. I think maybe James can answer.
Sorry, what was,
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
So when a playground is initially installed, and you have to have it like an audit to say that this was installed properly, et cetera, and they CRPR playground inspectors can't do that for us on the initial install. It's part of the agreement, right? When we.
Yeah, it's part of it is part of the process to have a third-party inspector install it. And there has to be a certified installation. It is part of the entire process to get that properly inspected. Then the inspection is done by CRPR. They produce a report once a year. I receive the report, and I use that to inform my decisions from there to what to present to the board in terms of budget and CIP.
Yeah, I guess my question is basically just so the independent auditor for the how's that how was that selected? I'm just curious about that process, just because that seems, I don't know, interesting. Because it's a playground. I'm, you know what? Maybe this is not the right venue for this question. Maybe I can just talk offline about it and not waste people's time. I apologize.
There are, to answer the question, there are just various third-party inspectors that are qualified that you find one the way you would find a structural engineer to review and design and stamp your drawing. It's very similar to that. You identify one, you give them a call to get it scheduled, they come out and do the inspection. Sometimes there are ones that we work with, and CRPR works with regularly, depending on if it's a specific piece of equipment. Sometimes you need maybe somebody more specialized. The port in place surface is something that needs to be addressed as well. You have to have a certified inspector review that as well. So that goes. It's similar for in the way if we're building a road, we have inspectors. Typically, we utilize Stahl Schaefer, but they're reviewing and inspecting and making sure that the road is built to the standards and built to the spec, and that's kind of the process. So it's very similar.
Sorry, I was just asking because I was thinking that's a very niche area, so I don't imagine there's a lot of price competition with the RFP or anything. So apologies, but thank you. That was actually very helpful.
It even sounds like the similar process before this past football season when they put the temporary seating up at the stadium. I heard they had a series of different engineers and firms come in, make sure it can hold the weight, make sure the seating is proper, because we were all kind of like...
having the D-line sit up there wasn't going to cut it, right?
Well, there were some people like, do I sit up there or do I not? So, yeah. All right, any other questions for Ms. Stevens? If not, I would go to communications to the board, and we'll recognize Mr. Patterson to share some remarks of general forum, maybe?
The city thingy?
Yeah.
Or do you want to do naturally the city first?
We could do both.
Or both.
So the first one was in the last council governance meeting. There was a very long de minimis item, I didn't find very de minimis, about a resolution. I guess I just wanted to, amongst this group, kind of give my feedback, and maybe we'll request 30 seconds from each of you of feedback on that resolution, perhaps, if it were to come back. I found it to be very well intended, but probably filled with lots of unintended consequences. And so, therefore, I'm kind of against it, and I just, from a kind of putting out a thing in a way, I think there's lots of other things that could be done. And so I would prefer to do the other things that could be done with actual teeth. So, just, if there's anyone else that wants to share, feel free, but.
No, I mean, I know I voted no, but I'd love to share. I agree with what Councilmember Gopal Balachandran said. Is a lot of people that were coming forth with this are not the individuals who would bear the brunt of the consequences, and I think that's something we have to consider given the proximity to major processing centers, given Center County's existence as a hub of international students, how much they make our economy thrive, and what drawing the ire of such an entity would involve, not just for our individuals here who are extremely vulnerable, but also our underlying economic stability. So there are a lot of, and this is not to take the psychopathic approach that money at the end of the day is all that matters, but this resolution in and of itself could have drastic consequences without doing much except for virtue signaling. And not to say that there's not virtue in virtue signaling, it's just that I would prefer as an elected official to actually take action on items that have teeth and that actually make our community safer, and don't just say that we want to do it, because we do want to do it. That's why we're here. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. Yeah, that's all I'll say.
I too am concerned about the unintended consequences, and I look forward to the conversation as it unfolds. Admittedly, I had a different opinion going into that conversation, and it wasn't until the unintended consequences were raised that I began to change my approach and my view on that. So again, I appreciate it, and I think it's a great example of elected officials and leaders coming together and having discussion that can be impactful, not only for the other electeds to hear, but also to weigh in the future. So. Thank you for the time to talk about that.
Yeah, I share some concerns of the unintended consequences, and I think this is a matter that requires more collaboration with municipal leaders before further action is taken, to have a full plan that will support and protect all our residents.
All right, so 30 more seconds. We are a member of National League of Cities as of last year. There were some councils that were kind of advertised. I just said, hey, if you want me to serve on one, happy to. One of them that I was asked to do was the University Communities Council, and had our first meeting earlier today, just a few hours ago, and well, it was a lot of hours ago now. Really need to hear that we're not alone. all of the university communities, I think I had several Big Ten schools, several small schools, Cambridge, Massachusetts, out Berkeley, California. I mean, there were several, mayors and township municipal leaders on this call, and they all kind of from a platform perspective had housing affordability, safety, budget. It was just I'm looking at a township slide, right? The thing, or that community's all. So just wanted to kind of give that to you guys, and if you have any things that are questions, let me know. Happy to ask questions of these folks all over the country that are on this call. It was very open dialogue, so I think folks are super willing to share their experiences and things that they're doing. So that's it.
Thanks for serving on that.
Thank you. Any other communications to the board? Mr. Haller.
I had communications related to last week's snowstorm, an appreciation for the snow removal crews that I just wanted to bring up here. And then I'm going to take off my Ferguson Township Supervisor hat and just put on my resident hat. I don't know if that's allowed, if I should have done that earlier.
You have to go to the podium now.
We'll see how that goes.
Because it is,
makes me nervous.
All right, it is simply a moment to express my appreciation to our road crews. I saw them out in multiple instances during the storm, going in multiple different directions. If I knew where they were going, I was gonna buy them coffee, but they disappeared so quickly, I didn't know where they were. I mean, they were out taking care. So I appreciate that. I appreciate our officers. And the fact that I understood that a couple officers were pushing people out of ditches and everything else because folks were not heeding the warnings. And that's a public service announcement to please heed the warnings when they say stay off the roads. That these officers pushed cars out and helped people. And that was great to hear. And just a general appreciation for staff in coordinating everything during the event. So sincerely, thank you. Thank you to the officers, thank you to staff, thank you to the road crews and everybody. Sincerely, I appreciate it.
Pass that along.
Thank you.
Yeah, I echo that. I remember during that snowstorm, I thought there was an accident outside my house, and I got out to the intersection, and Officer Klaus and Sergeant Hendricks, and I can't remember the other gentleman that was there, but just a car stuck in a snowbank, trying to go up Circleville Road, and through a lot of hard work, they got unstuck. Just kind of had to get all that snow out from underneath the car. They were able to go after that. And then some random people were walking down Blue Course with a wagon. So very interesting day. But thank the officers and the public works crews that worked tirelessly through that. As a matter of fact, I think if I'm correct, Jenna, even you were on the computer and saying, "Hey, stay home. Yeah. This is a bad idea." So good. Kudos to Jenna and the office staff for the PSAs and getting the messaging out there. So, any other communications? If not, President's Day is February 16th under our calendar items, so the offices here will be closed. And at this time, I will recognize Supervisor Stevens to present item number 11. Before we get to that,
Wouldn't
any
normally
words
do
from the
this,
manager?
but I said I would do it, and since we still have a survey out there,
Oh,
it is
yeah.
extended a little longer than we thought. I meant to say something earlier, but to the community, for the recruitment of the next township manager, the survey will be live through this Friday, the 6th of February. So please, if you haven't already, we've had over 100 responses so far. If you haven't already, please go in and complete the survey. Sorry.
And caveat, and if you need a paper copy of the survey, we have them here at the township, right?
Yep.
Okay, thank you so much.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we're adjourned. Have a good evening.
The other thing that popped into my head once I was in front of you, because I stepped from here on.